Using the term real agility in a somewhat provocative way. Now, I will caveat this. If you heard other talks of mine, you will hear a thematic thread run through this talk that you've probably heard from other talks. I've been developing this idea, and I'm certainly not alone. Don't want to claim any special providence, but I have seen the Agile community kind of in many ways go off the rails, focusing on particular methods and processes and tools. So again, I'm Bob Payne, background in computer architectures for AI, Agile, Lean, and I'm doing this and helping others implement Lean and Agile concepts for 21 years when I had my sort of epiphany that the way we had been doing things in a plan-driven model was probably not ideal. Now, you are all likely extraordinarily familiar with the Agile Manifesto. We're in the 20th year anniversary of the manifesto, and many things have been said about it. I really want to focus on item 1, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And the reason for that is multifold. We in our communities become very attached to our processes and tools. The Scrum community, the SAFe community, the Kanban community, the LESS community, and I'm not picking on the XP community where I came from originally. We have become very focused on processes and tools. And the people that formed many of those methods were at this meeting, and they said individuals and interactions were more important than specific processes and tools. Now, if we look at the landscape of agility, this hasn't changed a ton, except for the growth of Kanban at the team level, but Scrum is the most popular. Bit of XP still hanging around, one of my favorite methods, and where I started my career with Ron Jeffries, and I've spoken with Ward Cunningham over the years, and Ron was my first coach, and I co-taught my first Scrum class with Bill Wake, so folks that came from the XP community. But that is not the most popular. Scrum and Kanban are currently the most popular team-based methods. When we look at scaling, we've got LESS, we've got Disciplined Agile from the PMI, great recent webinar around that with Scott Ambler and company talking about Disciplined Agile, SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework from Dean Leffingwell. All of these are particular processes. Now, DA is a little bit different. We'll touch on that as we go. We've got lots and lots of different specific processes and tools that we see laid out that are different from one another in some at least subtle ways, sometimes significant ways. Kanban does not promote a time box. Scrum requires a time box. We're working in sprints. XP is a time box method. There isn't a sprint planning in Kanban. So clearly those processes are not the most important thing. The vast majority of our Agile methods live in the pretty sort of baby blue, maybe not quite baby blue, but the blue box, really focused on delivery. Now, I want to caveat that because there are tools and techniques that a lot of Scrum teams, certainly SAFe, talks about ideation and selection. Certainly DA has their model for how you create and understand a backlog. But a lot of methods and a lot of teams treat the world like, and a miracle occurs and there's a backlog and the team needs to deliver this. The magical, perfect product owner in Scrum has understood perfectly the needs of the customers and is focused on getting that into the backlog. Now, the reality is product owners use lots and lots of techniques from lean startup and other areas to focus on ideation. But most of the processes are really focused on delivery. How do we build stuff and get it ready for delivery? And certainly DevOps has helped fill that last mile, building on extreme programming's idea of continuous integration, continuous delivery to achieve specific outcomes. But to be honest, I've seen way too much focus in the Agile community just on delivery and not closing this entire loop. And I believe that real agility allows organizations to manage change, to pivot when necessary, and pivoting just means changing the company's directions or their service offerings or product mixes, to achieve some competitive advantage or even survival. An example that I like to use, because I lived in Rochester and loved analog photography for the longest time, was Kodak, the beloved yellow boxes of film, and Tri-X and Pan-X and the papers that they produced. Kodak invented, for all practical purposes, digital photography. I had a person in one of my Scrum classes whose mother worked for the HR department that was responsible for letting all the people in that division go because Kodak was so ingrained in analog, they were not willing or able to pivot to capture that new marketplace. They were perfectly placed to be able to do that. They did not. Learning requires, and success in a changing marketplace requires that we be able to learn. And that means informing our future ideas with the mistakes and successes of the past, measuring real outcomes to understand if the stuff we're building makes any difference. And I think that Edward Deming, one of the great grandparents of lean thinking, says it perfectly. Learning is not compulsory, neither is survival. When we look at lean processes and lean thinking, we're focused on continuous improvement, continuous change, and approaching that in a disciplined way so that we can capture those outcomes. And I'm going to switch over to my drawing board, and I'm going to include ideation and outcome-based metrics in the loop, right? We've got this loop that clearly has a delivery component. If we can't deliver, it's game over, right? I almost think that the DevOps movement has actually brought us back to the roots. Folks that developed Scrum and DSDM and XP and some of the early lean methods were super focused on being able to get stuff done. And they probably, knowing many of those people, they would have echoed the bumper sticker and not said stuff, right? They were focused on delivering things in short cycles so that if we're wrong, we can correct for it, we can learn. So I absolutely know that in the hearts and minds and writing and speech of all of those people, there was a focus on people interacting, using different processes and tools, because you drill down on XP and Scrum and Kanban, and there's a lot of overlap, and it focuses on people, but the processes are different. And we could argue that there's a lot of overlap, and they all focus on short cycles, and all of that is true. But if you were to take a dogmatic view of it, on-site customer is not a product owner. They're slightly different. And so we know that there are process differences where process 1 does not necessarily equal process 2, and yet we get results through some concrete behaviors of teams and achieving some concrete outcome with some specific attributes. And I would love to get other behaviors or attributes you think are important in the chat, but let me just lay it out this way. Given that the processes are different, and let's take the Summer Olympics as an example. We have team sports at the Summer Olympic. There's soccer, there's lacrosse, there's volleyball, the list goes on. And all of those teams, while they have different rules for the games that they're playing, different processes, different types of fitness possibly that they need to achieve, they get to be Olympians because of 2 key attributes that all great teams, all great individual performers have. And those are discipline and continuous improvement. A focus on doing the work necessary to get good. Maybe that means formalizing a workout routine. Maybe that means getting up at 4 a.m. and doing lots and lots of different types of exercises and changing it up. I don't know what the focus of that discipline is, but we can't get good without doing the work and being somewhat disciplined about understanding what's working and what's not. And once we understand what is working and what is not, we're going to focus on continuous improvement, getting better. And here I'll pretend to be an athlete, which is quite a stretch of the imagination. I do a little biking, but I'm by no means a decent athlete. But I have certainly seen athletes that say, well, I realize that the protocol for practicing for volleyball, let's say, is this, but I've found I get better using this workout routine. Continuous improvement, not resting on previous recipes. And the interesting thing about sports is it's a really, really confined domain. Meaning there is this set of rules, and success in that is usually focused on being able to execute best as a team within that extraordinarily confined set of rules. The world that we find in Agile is not as constrained or confined as a sport. We're delivering to an ever-changing marketplace with an ever-changing regulatory environment. We're doing lots and lots of different things to solve different problems. I'll just take Scrum and Kanban, for example. Kanban is used in service delivery and new software development, and in the developing legal briefs and personal productivity practices. Scrum is used in manufacturing and design and for delivering services and educational content and preparing to repair nuclear power plants, and lots of different domains. So we have an unconstrained, unconfined domain, and yet we're taking recipes and saying these must work. Scrum is the perfect process. Kanban is the perfect process. SAFe is the perfect process. And none of those statements are true. There's only best fit. There's only learning the original recipe and then continuously improving. All of the methods I listed have a continuous improvement loop built into them, and to do them in a disciplined way is to change them. If you're doing Scrum with discipline, then you treat the retrospective like it's a real thing, and that may take you off of the Scrum process. In my mind, that's okay, as long as you can show me that you're better performing as a team. Well, we have this thing that we go from idea to outcome. What does better performing look like if I don't know what the middle holds? If I can't say measuring this team's capability by, are they doing stand-ups? Well, no, they're not. Are they doing retros? No, they're not. They have a different process for continuous improvement, like Kanban has on-demand continuous improvement, quality circles, different ways of doing it. It's not a cadence of retrospectives. Why would I wait 2 weeks to fix a problem that I know I have now? And Scrum people would say, well, every 2 weeks you have to look at it. Just a different way of being disciplined in that domain of continuous improvement. And that's okay in my book. I don't care whether you're Scrum compliant, Kanban compliant, SAFe compliant. I don't care what you do in here. I want to treat this as a black box. No one should care about your process. They focus too much on the process, then you're likely to get in these weird situations where people are applying things, toolkits that don't work in a particular situation. Why? Well, it's part of the process. It's just the way we do things around here. Now, I do want you to be disciplined about what you do and how you do it. I do want you to focus on continuous improvement. And we're going to see that that's true in many different places. Well, so if I can't say, are you doing story point estimation? Do you have a product backlog that has some ready stories on? If I can't look for compliance of some checkbox of team health, how am I going to know whether you're doing a good job? I want to focus on the outcomes. If I can understand, and actually Carlos did a great little webinar recently with Lightspeed. It was one of our meetups talking about systems thinking. Now, the team is going to need to care about what they're doing. The Agile coach or Agile lead is going to care about what they're doing. But ultimately, from an organizational perspective, different teams may be doing different things. So how do I measure success? Well, here's where the 3 attributes come in. So these are the 2 behaviors that I think teams concentrate on in this idea of real agility. And there's 3 attributes of their outcome, their ability to deliver on an initiative that I think are the things we should focus on. Maybe not exclusively. There can be other things in here. And again, I'm willing to hear in the chat if you have other attributes that you think you could look at in some way to say, is this team getting better over time? Value flow. And by flow, that includes speed. Can I go from idea to measurable outcome quickly? And can I ensure that we built the right thing that's moving the outcome in the right direction? So there's a metrics component as well. Not just an idea about value, but understanding if we actually if we stuck the landing, to use a a floor exercise metaphor, since we're talking about the Olympics. Value flow. If this team can't flow value quickly from idea to a measurable outcome, then something is broken in here. They're not going to be successful. This team costs money. If we can't realize actual value from the money we're spending, we do not need the team. Period. It costs more to run than the value they produce, either in current value or future value or execution on some mission. Then we don't need the teams. So they're not going to be successful. Okay, so that's one attribute. So we should just go as fast as possible and build as much stuff as possible. Well, not really. My other attributes are balancing attributes, because we want to create a system where the team, the organization, is playing the long game. They want to be in business 5 years from now. Yes, they might have some quarterly results they want to hit, but they're playing a long game. So yes, I want to go fast and realize value, but I need to do that with appropriate quality. And I put appropriate there very specifically. And it's a balancing act. The faster I go, I might trade off quality for speed. That's where the concept of technical debt came in. It was meant to be an instrument where I can buy speed by giving up a little bit of quality, but I'm going to have to pay it off in the future. Or maybe I'm doing a prototype. I could spend months and months polishing a prototype, and when I show it to my users, they go, no, that's not right. We're not going to do that. I've wasted that effort. What if I just did a quick wireframe and got some reactions to it? That might be appropriate quality. If the business shuts down, if we screw up as a team, then appropriate quality is high. If people die, it's even higher, right? So the quality needs to be balanced by the flow, the speed, and the amazing thing is DevOps is giving us lots and lots of really cool tools that the XP, that first XP team, Kent Beck, Ron Jeffries, Ward Cunningham, planted the seeds of, and they're coming to fruition today. So we've got lots of great tools that allow us to evaluate quality quickly through automation and get things out and flow that value fast. And there's another one that's a little softer that I want to throw in as a balancing attribute, and that is S. And it is not speed, because we took care of speed with value flow, getting things done quickly. It has a little bit to do with quality, and that last S is for sustainability. Can the company come back month after month, week after week, sprint after sprint, and sustain delivery over time at the appropriate quality and continue to deliver quickly? This has been the focus of lean organizations for many, many years. And the process in lean organizations evolves from day to day, hour to hour, possibly hour to hour, but day to day, week to week, month to month. If Taiichi Ono and Edward Deming came back to life, 2021 has a zombie apocalypse problem. Those of you that have taken my class have heard that very old joke. But they would look at the processes within Toyota as an example of a lean thinking organization. and the processes would be almost completely different. They would see just-in-time value flow. They would see a focus on appropriate quality, and they would see a focus on sustainability in Toyota. And you'll also see it in any successful Agile implementation, regardless of process. So I want to just open up and see if anybody has any comments in the chat about that before I drill down on a couple of, kind of fill in the blank with a couple of methods and have you in the chat tell me how you think the value flow, quality, and sustainability is achieved through discipline and continuous improvement with that given method. But I want to just open it up very shortly to questions or comments in the chat if you have any.
We do, Bob. What are the measures of value and outcomes in this diagram?
Yeah, so that unfortunately is going to look extremely different. So it might equal money. I've captured money. It might be cost savings. But when I look at public sector organizations such as CIS or a military group or governmental organizations, right? The cash is not their primary focus of value. It might be customer satisfaction, it might be mission outcome. So this is an area where we have to have a disciplined conversation about what is value. I like to have that conversation in a disciplined way, write it down, and I'm going to know that it's wrong in some smaller, significant way. And we're going to focus on continuous improvement. Great organizations, everybody in the organizations know how their work contributes to value, whether it's a small group of Navy SEALs, whether it is a team working at Spotify on their particular part of that application. Many organizations have started to use outcomes and key results evaluated on a rapid basis to understand what is value for this team at this time, how could we measure it, and how does that contribute to the overall outcome of the organization. So unfortunately, there is no one size fits all to understand what value is. But the worst solution is to not have the conversation and to have no one know. I go into many Scrum teams, and you may have that experience as well. No one knows why they're building what they're building. They get things from the product backlog, they build it, they test it, they demo it. But if you ask them, how does that drive your organizational outcome? A lot of teams don't know. They're not disciplined about that. And Audrey, I don't see any of the global chat for some reason. So if you'll just read stuff out, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So we have one more thought. I'm going to kind of reword, and we're going to ask you for some advice here.
Okay.
If a company, thinks it's unique and has started some quote unquote agile methods, but right off the bat, they're changing them and doing them differently because they're unique. What can you do about that? There's no discipline built in. They're just trying something new without trying the first thing.
Sure. So, in one of the, and I don't know whether this analogy will be helpful, but one of the things that you do as part of the discipline of improvising in whatever method you're using is you understand what came before in some way. A lot of people will take agile methods and then almost immediately turn them into waterfall because we're different. We do things this way around here. And then I can't flow value quickly because we've got all of these process roadmaps potentially, depending on how you're modifying it. So if I look at these, the attributes of the outcomes, we'll see that we won't know the, we don't need to know what the problem is, but we can identify the problem. Quite often when you look closely, they're doing what many people call Scrum but. We're doing Scrum, but we do all the requirements up front, and then we break it down into user stories and then build up a huge release and release it all at once. Well, there I'm not flowing value, right? We test at the end because that's the only way our testers will work. So sprint after sprint, I haven't guaranteed appropriate quality. We have really big releases that require that people work all night, and burn the candle at both ends with Red Bull and pizza. And that's not sustainable. So we'll see the symptoms of that. We do Scrum, but behavior. So I often say, take it out of the book and practice it until you understand it, till you know what it feels like to do Scrum. I'm not saying it's a perfect recipe or Kanban or SAFe, whatever beginning recipe you choose. I don't care. I do have some skin in the game because we train Scrum and SAFe, but I almost don't care where you start. Start someplace, be disciplined, and if you really invest in discipline and continuous improvement, as long as you're doing things on a short cycle, learning on a short cycle, I think you can get where you need to be. But the discipline includes looking at, are we getting appropriate value or appropriate quality value flowing rapidly, realizing that return on investment and doing it in a sustainable way. And so that's why I think those attributes are important to understand. When we make process changes, if we're not better here at one or more of those things, then whatever we changed isn't helping, right? If what it does is make it easier to come to work and to understand, but value and quality stay the same, cool, right? We're going to retain more people. If it improves quality, but doesn't really affect the value, cool. If we automate a whole bunch of acceptance tests, allow us to go faster with value at better quality, even better, right? But we're gonna, whatever change we make in here through this discipline and continuous improvement has to result in observable differences out here. Otherwise, the change wasn't helpful.
All right, that's it for now, and we're ticking down to about 10 minutes, Bob.
Yep, great. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of different methods, and I'd like to just have you shout out in the chat, what are some things that allow Scrum teams to focus on value? Oops.
Clear user stories.
Yep, clear stories, absolutely. Yeah, so that requires that we collaborate, individuals and interactions with our product owners and stakeholders in a meaningful way, and we're disciplined about those acceptance criteria, right? So I'll say clear acceptance criteria as part of our quality. What else?
Clear conditions of satisfaction.
Yeah, so that's sort of an interesting bridge between both the value, because satisfaction is subjective, but it's a quality check. Right?
Having a safe place for dissent.
That's probably part of the sustainability. Exactly. What's another thing we do to ensure quality? Maybe regular demos. Regular. Right? So some of the processes and tools that are embedded in Scrum, if you apply Scrum with a disciplined behavior, can achieve value flow, quality, embedded testing, cross-functional teams. Great. Sustainability. I would say sprint planning, if done well, we only take on the amount of work that we can accomplish during that sprint. And there are others, right? But Kanban's a completely different, it's a flow-based method. It doesn't have sprint planning and retros necessarily. How does it focus on that value flow? Anybody have any thoughts?
WIP limits.
Yeah, WIP limits help us get stuff done, right? So that we can actually check to make sure it's valuable. We don't do a million things all at once. We focus on a few things, get them done. What about any of the other things, quality or sustainability?
Still embedded testing is one answer.
Yeah, and in fact, in Kanban, what we typically see is not just a definition of done and definition of ready. Each work zone will have a defined handoff criteria.
Unit tests, dev notes. For sustainability, WIP limits, so the team can comfortably get the work done.
Yep, I'll pop that in both. What was the other one, Audrey?
Unit testing, dev notes.
Okay.
Peer reviews and lessons learned.
Yep.
And can you zoom in a little bit, Bob? Sorry, I'm late on that.
Sure. Yep. Thank you. No.
No problem. We'll share a PDF on the follow-up. Don't worry.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll make these bigger. I apparently am at the WIP limit for Mural to Zoom.
Looks great.
So it was unit test. Oh, we did that one. Okay. One of the things that is focused on in Kanban is customer pull. We build just in time the things that the customer needs now. So there's a focus on customer needs. And you can do that in different ways. And given that we have 4 minutes, I'm going to skip, and this is sort of a test for folks who hopefully have seen Discipline Agile. But I'd like to describe Discipline Agile as a set of toolkits with different processes. It's a process selection toolkit that allows you to tailor and select different processes as the needs of the team evolve. So what we'll see is there are a variety of items, of processes and tools that a team might implement. Variety of different tools on different solutions for these different problem spaces. Now, Kanban evolves in that way as well. SAFe allows you to tailor it and to change processes to trade them out. SAFe is built up selecting from many different toolkits in the Agile community, but it also has an inspect and adapt that will, in a reflective way, say what we're doing, can we do it better, and let's adjust how we're doing it going forward. So with that, since we're close to time, that was a very rapid tour de force. I'd like to just finish up with a couple of slides. We did that. Bob Payne, you can reach out to Sanjeev as well. He's one of the founders. I wanted to open it up to any questions in the remaining time or comments.